Should we do the invocation again? Chalo. Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So it's a common experience for many of us that when things go wrong and we are thinking about it, it seems like the end of the world. But suppose we get into some other activity or whatever, and then we look back on it, it doesn't seem to be such a big deal, right? How big it looks in the moment of our agitation, it shrinks when we sort of look away from it. Now the event is what it is, but what gives you the right perspective is your distance from it. If you're totally identified with it, it seems very big. But if you do something else, or you just breathe, or you do something to step out of it, you get a more correct view of it than you would when you're totally enmeshed in it. So the title of our talk today is The True View, which is in fact the first of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. He gave us an Eightfold Path as a way to find the truth. And the first of the 8 is right view, right perception. Because when we look at life through the lens of our thought, we more or less always get the wrong view of things. So, these are Karen Miller's words. So, Karen Miller had inherited a garden with a pond which was very muddy, very murky, very difficult to clean. So, she'd called a person who was an expert with cleaning ponds and water. So, this is the interaction. Our ponds were muddy. The water was an ugly brown, laced with bright green strings of algae. It didn't look like any koi pond we'd seen in Better Homes magazine. We thought it was sick and that the few fish swimming in the murk must be terribly sick too. This is the most perfect example of a naturally purified pond that I've ever seen. The guy finally said. He was awestruck, the guy they'd called to clean it. So take this pond as a metaphor for your life. When you look at it, it looks like there's so many ugly things in it. And the pond specialist could be your teacher, a guide who comes along and gives you the right view of the pond. So he's saying this is the most perfect example of a naturally purified pond that I've ever seen, the guy finally said. He was awestruck. Then he showed us the hidden elegance in the whole rotten mess. The large surface area supplied ample oxygen. The stream and waterfalls were natural filters. The mud balanced the water's chemistry, keeping plants and fish alive. The algae was seasonal, triggered by temperature changes, and easy to manage. The precise science of pond scum was beyond my grasp, but the bottom line was this: ours wasn't like the designer fish ponds decorating fancy homes and magazine covers. This was the real deal. It would always be trouble. Ponds are a shitload of trouble. But it wasn't a problem. This is a line to remember. There will be trouble in our life, but we don't have to make it into a problem. Trouble is something you have to work with, deal with, but you don't have to make it a problem in your mind. So it would always be trouble. Ponds are a shitload of trouble, but it wasn't a problem. Skim the leaves, circulate the water down the stream and falls. Let the mud settle and the pond will purify itself. He didn't do anything that day except give us the right view of the water. It isn't always pretty, but it's beautiful. We never needed to call him again. The mind we bring to a retreat is marvelous and fully functional. As with water, the problem is what we put into it. The debris of old pain and resentments, the weight of grief and loneliness, the cloud of judgments, the poison of jealousy and anger, the anxious internal rat-a-tat pelting the present calm like a storm of stones. Buddha called these kinds of disturbances upside down thinking. By the time we come to sit, we feel as if we are drowning in a muddy flood, unable to breathe, see, or slow down. We can't imagine the deep stillness that lies beneath the waves. A pond doctor enters the room with a reassuring smile and says, "You are a perfect example of natural purification." His medicine is nothing more than meditation, the way of sitting. He reminds you that you can inhale an infinite supply of oxygen without mechanical intervention. He tells you to follow the movements of your breath to clear distractions and use your own senses to refresh your awareness. Naturally, disturbances occur, but you can right yourself again. Sit still. Just sit still and let the mud sink to the bottom. Your life rises up on a sturdy stalk and blooms on the surface like a lotus flower. What goes into sitting isn't pretty, but after a while it becomes beautiful. Now, what did you say your problem was? So, this is often an experience for many of us. We may start with feeling agitation, but if we just sit quietly and breathe and go within, we come out somehow more or less healed, less agitated, happier, because when you're sitting still, you're allowing the mud to settle. And that's what she's saying. What goes into the sit isn't pretty, but after a while it becomes beautiful. You want to give him water? Okay. I'm not really living, I'm just existing. People say this to describe how lifeless they think life is. We all feel like that sometimes, no, lackluster. I'm not really living, I'm just existing. But I'm sure their life is full of life. What they need is the right view. When we are looking at life like that, it seems drab, it seems lackluster, but we just need the right view. So whenever we are unhappy, we've just fallen into the ignorance of the wrong view of life. We've fallen into calling our pond muddy, dirty, so much trouble to clean it, what a burden, etc. But that pond specialist can be something inside you, something you read, someone who comes along and reminds you that the pond is beautiful as it is. It's whole because of its imperfections. Anything very perfect doesn't have a rounded wholeness, no? So, because of its imperfections, it's beautiful. And the pond is so beautiful that if you put muck into it, the muck of anger, jealousy, whatever, troubles will come along as a naturally purifying system. Not to punish you, but if you put things into it that need to be cleansed, then troubles will come as a naturally purifying system, not to punish the pond but to make it beautiful again. So the pond specialist who gives you the right view that the pond is the best example of a naturally purified system, and that's what each of us is. If we put the weeds of anger, jealousy and build samskaras around them, life will send us trouble just to purify us of those samskara. Each of us is a pond which is the best example of a naturally purifying system. So it's beautiful, it's not ugly, and trouble is not a problem, it's just a mechanism to clean the pond. Take care of the practice, the master said to a few faithful. Then trouble is not a problem. Yeah? Trouble is what comes to cleanse you, then it's not a problem. We have the power to transform everything when we have the courage to do nothing. To make peace, stop tossing stuff into the water. Stop tossing anger, jealousy, hatred into the water. You are empty and impermanent, changing continuously, turning by tiny degrees, the wheel of endless cycle. So she's talking about a newborn. She's telling you to remember the time when you came as a newborn baby. So imagine that you're a newborn baby. Now listen. Just a month from now, your family will marvel at the growing heft of your body. They will delight in the dawn of your awareness. You will grab a finger and hold tight. Turn your head, pucker your lips and eat like there's no tomorrow. You will smile. 6 months from now, the newborn will be gone. Within a year or so, you will be walking the earth as your dominion. And although your caregivers might think that they taught you to eat, walk and talk, these attributes emerged intuitively from your deep intelligence. Think about it, you don't really ever teach a baby to walk and talk. It's just an innate intelligence from which it emerges. You are born completely endowed with perfected wisdom, with the perfected wisdom of the awakened mind. You are a miracle. You are a genius. You eat when hungry and sleep when tired. See, we take it for granted. We take something like hunger for granted. But there's such a science behind creating the sensation of hunger. Think about it. If you were a scientist, there's such a science to levels of hydrochloric acid in your stomach, signaling your mouth. Sensation of hunger, we take it for granted, but no doctor can create it. If you give doctor scientific materials and say create the sensation of hunger or create the sensation of sleep, it's very difficult. But what Karen Miller is saying, you have an inborn intelligence which is doing all this for you. And she's saying you're a genius just for that. You don't have to make a masterpiece to be a genius. You are a Buddha, but in the same way that you will forget the circumstances of your birth, you will forget the truth of your being. And by forgetting what you are, you will suffer in the painful, fruitless search to become something else, striving against your own perfection to feel whole and secure. This is so beautiful. When we forget who we are, we suffer and we embark on a painful, fruitless search to become something else. Like what we see on media, like what we see others, we want to be like them. But we don't celebrate our own uniqueness, striving against your own perfection to feel whole and secure. By your attachment to desires, you will squander the chance of endless lifetimes, the chance to be born in human form. Luckily, the chance to be reborn, to wake up, arises every moment. Your body is the body of inexhaustible wisdom. When will you realize it? So we always feel we have to achieve something to feel good about ourselves. But just by being in existence, in a way it's a great achievement, right? Because our body itself is a body of inexhaustible wisdom. Each of us is really a walking miracle. So instead of just being content in being what we are always looking at others, setting up a standard of what we want to be and not celebrating what we are. In each moment of birth, we lose what we no longer need, the beliefs of who and what we are, and what we can and can't do. We learn that life is not ours alone, but so this is important. In each moment of birth, we lose what we no longer need, the beliefs of who and what we are. For example, if I have a very strong belief that I can be spoken to only in a certain way, life will always send people who won't speak to me like that. So it will challenge the belief that I am somebody who needs to be treated like this, spoken like this. So that's what she's saying. Always, in each moment of birth, we lose what we no longer need, the beliefs of who and what we are and what we can and can't do. We learn that life is not ours alone, but shared through all space and time, not defined by what we like, want, know, or think. So see, each of us feels that life should go according to what we like, according to what we think it should be. But life always challenges us because it will go other than the way you think it should be. Because your ego identity is based on a certain belief system. And so long as that belief system is adhered to by circumstances of your life, your ego feels safe. But moment circumstances contradict that belief system, your ego starts shaking. So every moment of life will shake you and shake you and shake you till you give away those beliefs. It's so beautiful. In Buddhism, there's the concept of shunyata, or emptiness. So many Zen masters define that shunyata as emptiness of all your beliefs, to see that everything you really believe, we are not talking about the higher beliefs like believing in mother, and that too, what we believe her to be will keep changing. What you believe her to be is also not static. I'm not talking about faith, but I'm talking about your beliefs of life. They are empty. They are empty of any abiding permanent truth. So the less you cling to them, the happier you'll be. And if you persist in clinging to them, then life will send you trouble as a way of cleansing you of it. So we learn that life is not ours alone, but shared through all space and time. So it's shared by the whole universe. This life is not ours alone, it belongs to everyone. It's shared through all space and time, not defined by what we like, want, know, or think. We get a good look at how much trouble we can cause, how stubborn, selfish, and terrified we are, and how much growing up we still have to do. So, when do we cause trouble? What is Karen Miller saying? Whenever our ego is challenged, it starts reacting in simple things like we touched upon this even last class. For example, when there are a group of people, you'll agree that if there are 4 people, each one will have a different dynamic with the remaining 3. Yeah? Now, it's possible that if there's A, B, C, D, because of paths, births, or whatever, A may like B the most. It's legitimate. But C and D can start resenting it. But if you're a third person to this whole thing, you'll see that it's not necessary. A is still being nice to C and D, but A can't help it if A has the greatest affinity for B. So C and D, if their ego reacts to A liking B more, they'll create a lot of unnecessary trouble, right? In the scheme of things, somewhere we'll have to accept that different human beings will have different affinities for different people. You can't be the most liked all the time. And the ego needs this. It wants to be the most liked all the time. So, suppose A likes B more, and A naturally gives that little bit more attention to B, but A is being nice to C and D, but giving that little bit more attention to B, C and D start reacting. But if you are out of the situation, you find that reaction is uncalled for. A is still being very nice to them. A still holds C and D in a very special place in her or his heart. But A can't help it if A naturally likes B more, right? So I'm just giving you an example. Because of our ego, we create so much unnecessary trouble and sour so many relationships unnecessarily, and eventually C and D will have to, after a lot of trouble, they'll have to come to this acceptance that A and B have a special relationship. Let them have it. But I don't have to sour my relationship with them. I also have a special relationship. I may not be the most loved by A, but I'm still loved by A. Why isn't that good enough? So that's what Karen Miller is saying, Isha. That's what Karen Miller is saying in this example, that we get a good look at how much trouble we cause, how stubborn, selfish, and terrified we are. We are so terrified that A likes B more, and we are stubborn. You're doing me wrong and paying B more attention, but why not? A likes B more. She has a right to like B more. So long as she's not treating me badly, why am I reacting so much? Why is my ego coming up so much? We get a good look at how much trouble we cause, how stubborn, selfish, and terrified we are, how much growing up we still have to do. We learn that the true nature of love, as effortless and abiding, flowing naturally and forgiving everything. So, when we are attached, we don't love. The extent to which we are attached to people, our love gets a little toxic. But when we can love without attachment, we love essence and not the form. Attachment is always to the form. But love is, as Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, all love is a yearning of the one for the one. A recognition of myself in all others, and doing for others what I do for myself, because somewhere I'm intuiting that everyone is an extension of myself. So Karen Miller uses beautiful words. The true nature of love is effortless and abiding, naturally forgiving everything. So if we constantly are poised in the remembrance that everything is the mother, everything is myself, then what will I forgive? Sri Aurobindo writes in his Thoughts and Aphorisms, God struck me with a human hand. Shall I have the audacity to tell him, I forgive you your insolence, O God, but do it not again? He's saying it tongue in cheek. So if everyone is the mother, giving me the experiences I need for my growth, and mother says it, everyone is me wearing a silly mask, then whatever anyone does to me, there's a constant state of ongoing forgiveness. There's no grudge that arises. So there was a beautiful little vignette I read today. Once when the mother was in her body, there was a girl who had a tooth decay and her cheek had swollen up like this. And she met, I think, Nalini, I'm not sure, but Nalini and some other disciples were down, and they ushered her up to mother's room. And mother saw her, looked at her fiercely and gave her a tight slap on that swollen thing. And the girl was in shock. She started crying. She ran out of the room and said, this is the wickedest thing that's been done to me. I'm taking the train home and going away from Pondicherry. And she was stepping out, and Nalini told her, hey, what happened? Where's your swelling gone? And suddenly she realized her swelling had gone and her pain had gone. So mother as Mahakali had slapped out the force or energy that was causing it. Now, because it was the mother and the result was so obvious to her, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. But that's what Sri Aurobindo is saying, God struck me with a human hand. But we forget that anyone who strikes us is finally mother striking us. So while we don't have to be stupid, we have to protect ourselves, but without holding grudges and hatred in our heart. There was another story of a elderly lady who was shivering and had a shawl and was waiting to go up for darshan to mother. And there was another person who was helping her out, and he was behind this lady. And mother saw this lady and she was giving toffees, and she fiercely looked at her and she said, what's that you're wearing? And she looked at the shawl and she threw the toffee at her. And this other sadhak said, this is not the way to behave with an elderly. We are full of mental judgments, no? Why is mother being so mean? This is not right. And he did pranam also in a half-baked way because he was losing faith in the mother. And next day he was coming down and he saw the lady, she was without a shawl, and he asked her that, you had such high fever yesterday, why have you come down without a shawl? So she said that yesterday at 11 o'clock, without doing anything, my fever just went away. Mother wasn't scolding me, she was scolding the fever. So we judge everything with our human mind and we take it so seriously, but we can never understand mother's working. That's what Sri Aurobindo writes in the Mother, that however intelligent your mind is, you will never ever be able to follow the mother's working. So it's always good to suspend judgment. When you know that your mind is incapable of understanding, just suspend judgment and trust that mother knows what she is doing. This love is compassion, and it is born when we are no longer deceived by appearances. The illusion that I exist separate from you, the you that I blame when I'm selfish, embittered and angry. So we always feel that I am separate from you, and the ego survives on creating these boundaries. And whenever I make anyone wrong, the ego is very happy, because making people wrong is fuel for the ego. The desire to prove I'm right and you're wrong, whenever that comes up, no, it's the ego, because the ego loves it. Being right and others are wrong, it comes alive. But if you really understand that everything is myself, and whoever I'm finally fighting myself, then that is a big blow to the ego. Compassion is the fearless essence of life. It endures, enhances, and sustains itself. It is generous and good. Maizumi, Karen Miller's master, was famous for saying simply, appreciate your life. He didn't mean conjure up a sentiment of gratitude or abundance. He didn't mean make a bucket list or count your blessings. He meant don't conjure, list or count. Appreciate your life by waking up. What does this mean? Appreciate your life by waking up. Waking up to what? To? Awareness. Waking up to the right view, which comes with awareness. When you're looking at the muddy pond and saying, this is wrong with my life, that is wrong with your life, and you wake up to the truth that everything that's wrong is just a naturally purifying system. It's come to purify you, that nothing in this universe is there to make you unhappy, that everything is perfectly designed with absolute accurate precision for your growth and liberation. So when you wake up to this truth, you can't help but appreciate life. You'll appreciate every little thing about life. You'll appreciate the trees, the sun, everything. On the day you were born, the grass danced and the air sang. The sun rose up and bowed beneath the moon's mystery. The stars harmonized in silent symphony. The ocean lulled the earth beneath a foggy west, making a rich and ready nest. Your mother and father, every mother and father came together and apart, entrusting their lives to you, making a place for you to come home. So it's just a poetic way of saying that the whole universe celebrates you in every moment, right from the moment you were born, but you just don't know it. First, be quiet. Give away your ideas, self-certainty, judgments and opinions. Drop your personal agenda. Let go of defenses and offenses. Face your critics. They will always outnumber you. Lose all wars. All wars are lost to begin with. Abandon your authority and entitlements. So I gave you an example. You feel you're entitled to being loved the most by everyone. That's what every ego feels. I'm entitled to being the most important person. If you are the most important person in my life, I also have to be the most important person in your life. But it may not work like that. It's my choice that I've given you a place to be the most important person in my life. But it's your choice how you choose. I'm not talking about husband and wife, keep that out of it, though that also, but we'll keep that out. But even in friends, even in family, you are free to choose who's the most important to you. How many of you can resonate that your ego feels hurt when how much importance you give a person isn't reciprocated back? Yeah? But look at it logically. Can you fault the person? Nobody put a gun to your head to make you like this person the most. Can you put a gun to that person's head to like you the most? It's illogical, right? The person's free to like others so long as the person's treating you with love and respect. This idea that I want to be the most important is the ego, and it creates a lot of unnecessary trouble. So whenever it rises up, and it will rise up and you will start seeing little things the person did as ways to insult you, negate you, write you off. But if you really look at it logically, it's not so. Just because this person has, like when I teach students, I often ask them that if I praise one of you, do the rest of you feel I've insulted you? And everyone's hand will go up. I've said nothing wrong to the rest. I've just praised one person. But it's the ego which feels slighted. I didn't get the praise. But I could still like you very much, though I'm not vocalizing it in the moment. I'm vocalizing it to that person. So when Rama said become aware, these are the ways to become aware. Whenever the ego is raising its head and making trouble for you, you should be able to recognize and say no. Just because she's paying more attention to her doesn't mean my relationship with her is compromised in any way. My relationship with her is still beautiful. She's entitled to love whoever she likes the most, so long as she's giving me the respect, love, dignity that's being exchanged in our relationship. So these are little ways in which we can get conscious and overcome our ego. Lose all wars. All wars are lost to begin with. Abandon your authority and entitlements. Release your self-image, status, power, whatever you think gives you clout. It doesn't. So you think you have clout in life if you're the most important person in that life, in that person's life. But it doesn't, not really. That's a lie you've never believed. Deep down, you've never believed that you're good if you're the most important person in that person's life. Give up your seat. Be what you are, unguarded, unprepared, and surrounded on all sides. Alone, you're a victim of no one and nothing. You are as ready as you'll ever be. You were born ready. The equipment you have, the God that you are, is your readiness. You were born ready. You don't really need anyone else. You keep fooling yourself that you need that person's appreciation, company, time to be happy and secure, but you don't. You were born ready. The possibilities are endless. Reject nothing. What appears in front of you is your liberation. That is, unless you judge it. Then you imprison yourself again. So what does this line mean? What appears in front of you is your liberation. That is, unless you judge it. Then you imprison yourself again. What does this mean?
Everything that is happening to you is for your own growth.
Yes. But if you judge it, then and you call it wrong, my pond is dirty, then you fall into the prison of unhappiness again.
I'm not sure this one over here. When you say be what you are, unguarded, unprepared, and surrounded on all sides. I'm not clear.
So be what you are, unguarded. Trust life. Don't be on your guard against it. Unprepared. Don't always be in survival mode trying to prepare yourself to fight this emergency, that emergency. Surrounded on all sides.
Surrounded by what?
Surrounded by what you're perceiving as enemies. It's okay. Alone, you're a victim of no one and nothing. Because, see Rama, remember even those enemies, it's like when I told you the story of mother slapping the toothache out of the girl. In that moment when the girl walked down the steps, she was thinking mother's her enemy number one. But she wasn't her enemy. She was her deepest friend. She healed her by slapping her. So the enemy is also not really the enemy, it's an appearance. So be okay to be surrounded by them, trusting that finally I'm going to be fine, even if my mind's telling me I'm surrounded. What appears in front of you is your liberation, that is, unless you judge it. Then you imprison yourself again. Oh, these are beautiful lines by Pamela Bloom. More than anything, compassion as taught by the Buddha is not about a giver and receiver, an I and another. In fact, the various Buddhist meditation practices taught to develop compassion are all focused on the dissolution of the abyss between that which gives and that which receives. That is to say, the dissolution of the perception of that abyss. So, Pamela Bloom is saying compassion is not about I giving you. Compassion is about recognizing that there is no I and you. Compassion is about dissolving the perceived abyss between me and you. To recognize that everything is one. All love is a yearning of the one for the one. So, if I do something for you, there's no sense that I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it as naturally as I would do it for myself. And so also, there's no question of a grudge. If my hand develops a painful pus boil, I won't hold a grudge against my hand for giving me the pain, right? I'll just focus on how to heal it. So if somebody gives me pain and I'm anchored in this knowing that everything is me, my focus is to heal that pain in myself and in that person. Not to hate the person, because that frankly achieves nothing. Yes, I must look after myself. If somebody is causing me pain, my first business is to heal my pain. Yeah, if I get a boil on my arm, I won't just leave it. I'll work on healing it. But without hating the boil, because that hatred will cause more pain. No me, no you, only a sea of sentient beings suffering for endless aeons, all looking for a way out. The Buddha says the way out, the cure and the antidote, the medicine and the balm lies deep within us, in the very nature of who we are. That's why earlier it was said, don't be afraid to stand alone, because the medicine, the balm, the healing, everything lies inside you in the very nature of who we are. Therefore, there's this mantra from the Upanishad, which we explored in class this morning. Om Sarvam Asmi. I am everything, and everything is me. So compassion is living the truth of Om Sarvam Asmi. I am everything. So this is a beautiful sonnet by Sri Aurobindo. Whenever you're very upset with anyone, you should just read it, and read it again and again till the upset goes away. So Sri Aurobindo says, the one self, all are deceived to do what the one power dictates. Yet each thinks his own will, his nature moves. So Krishna says this, in the Gita, that everyone is mounted on the machine of Maya and moved by me to do what I want them to do. But everyone thinks they are doing it on their own. So that's what he's saying here. All are deceived to do what the one power dictates. Yet each thinks his own will, his nature moves. The hater knows not, 'tis himself he hates. The lover knows not, 'tis himself he loves. What a marvelous line. The hater knows not, 'tis himself he hates. The lover knows not, 'tis himself he loves. In all is one being, many bodies bear. Here Krishna flutes upon the forest road. Here Shiva sits ash smeared with matted hair. But Shiva and Krishna are the single God. Shiva and Krishna also one, Sri Aurobindo says. In us too Krishna seeks for love and joy. In us too Shiva struggles with the world's grief. So Shiva and Krishna are one, and we are the culmination of their oneness. Each one of us is the culmination of the oneness of Shiva, Krishna, Mother, everyone. In us too Krishna seeks for love and joy. In us too Shiva struggles with the world's grief. One self in all of us endures annoy. Annoy in Old English doesn't mean irritate only. It means suffering. It's a noun. So one self in all of us endures suffering. One self in all of us endures annoy. Cries in his pain and asks his fate's relief. So we think I am suffering, but the I is just a phantom, right? So it's really the mother in us suffering. It's that one self in everyone who's suffering. Cries in his pain and asks his fate's relief. So there's a beautiful lines in Savitri, maybe not verbatim, but from memory. Wearing the garb of a beggar, asking a scanty dole from fate, there walks the one. So each of us wears the garb of a beggar because we feel I don't have enough, I'm lacking. Asking a scanty dole from fate, I'm begging fate that please do this, please make this happen. There walks the one with a capital O. So each of us is that one who's all powerful, all knowing, all loving, but we don't know of our spiritual riches. So we keep begging, there walks the one. My rival's downfall is my own disgrace, because my rival is also myself, right? My ego may feel happy, but my rival's downfall is my own disgrace. I look on my enemy and see Krishna's face. What marvelous lines. My rival's downfall is my own disgrace. I look on my enemy and see Krishna's face. So let's do a little practice based on this. We did it in this morning's yoga class, but I thought everyone should benefit from it. So sit tall and put your hand on your heart, right hand first, left palm on top, and connect with Mother's presence in your heart. And the thought, in fact, Sri Aurobindo tells us that a very effective theme to contemplate when you meditate is the theme that all is God, all is the Mother. So this mantra from the Upanishad, Om Sarvam Asmi, I am everything and everyone. So seeing Mother's face smiling in your heart, the same face smiling in all hearts, in the earth, on the ground, in the air. Let's chant Om Sarvam Asmi together. Sarvam Asmi, Sarvam Asmi, Sarvam Asmi. And now relax your hands and remember that line, in my rival's downfall is my own disgrace. I look on my enemy and see Krishna's face. So whoever the mind has made an enemy may be a strong word, but whoever is the difficult person in your life, visualize that person across you, seeing Mother's face in your heart and Mother's face in that person's heart also. Now reflect on the negativity that flows between the two of you. It could be a recurring negativity of criticizing each other, agitating each other, trying to prove each other wrong, or feeling unloved by that person and so resentful, lack of communication, just one negative cycle which keeps repeating between y'all. Now visualize your navel center connected to this person's navel center with an energy cord. The navel is the vital. So that cord of negativity which is already there, now you're just seeing it, connecting your navel center to the person's navel center, and put into it that negative emotion of why you think this person is difficult, or what is the impurity or unconsciousness between y'all, one-upmanship, jealousy, anything, and feel that cord. Now visualize Mother holding a sword in her hand. And exhale and see that sword coming down, snapping that cord of negativity between two of you. Do it with focus and concentration. And if you've done it in a half-baked way, don't count it as one of the three. Count 3 where you've given it your best. Now visualize a cord of light connecting your heart center to that person's heart center, and Mother in your heart, the Mother in that person's heart. As you inhale, Mother carries as if that gratitude, appreciation, love, whatever you want to flow between the two of you, the Mother in your heart flows across this bridge of light to the Mother in that person's heart. And then the Mother in that person's heart flows across this bridge of light back to the Mother in your heart. Do this 3 times. Be aware of what emotions, positive emotions you want to bring in your relationship, and putting them into the Mother's face as she carries them back and forth 3 times. And then the last bit, see Mother's face high up in the ceiling, her palm raised in blessing, and 2 shafts of golden light coming from her palm, one into you as you are, one into the difficult person. going right down and then curving up again and going back to the heart, back to mother's heart. So you make an inverted heart. So if you're not sure, mother's hands are here. This is you, this is the difficult person. Two shafts of light coming down like this, curving up and going back to the mother's palm. So you're making an inverted heart 3 times. And then seeing mother smile in your heart and in the person's heart, 3 times Om Sarvam Asmi. We are all one. Fighting you is fighting myself. It's meaningless. Sarvam Asmi. Sarvamasmi, Sarvamasmi. And then slowly open your eyes whenever you're ready. If you have a very difficult person in your life, very recommended that you do it continuously for 21 days and see the outcome. So these are mother's words. Emerge into a higher state. It is obvious that what especially characterizes man is this mental capacity of watching himself live. The animal lives spontaneously, automatically, and if it watches itself live, it must be to a very minute and insignificant degree. And that is why it is peaceful and doesn't worry. Even if an animal is suffering because of an accident or an illness, this suffering is reduced to a minimum by the fact that it does not observe it, does not project it in its consciousness and into the future, does not imagine things about its illness or its accident. And we can see any little thing, how much suffering we add by worrying about it, thinking about it. With man, there has begun this perpetual worrying about what is going to happen. And this worry is the principal, if not the sole cause of his torment. With this objectivizing consciousness, there has begun anxiety, painful imaginations, worry, torment, anticipation of future catastrophes, with the result that most men, and not the least conscious, the most conscious, live in perpetual torment. Man is too conscious to be indifferent. He is not unconscious like the animals, so he can't be indifferent. He is not conscious enough to know what will happen. Truly, it could be said without fear of making a mistake that of all earth's creatures, he is the most miserable. The human being is used to being like that because it is an atavistic state, an inherited state, which he has inherited from his ancestors. But it is truly a miserable condition. And it is only with the spiritual capacity of rising to a higher level and replacing the animal's unconsciousness by a spiritual super consciousness that there comes into the being not only the capacity to see the goal of existence and to foresee the culmination of the effort, but also a clear-sighted trust in a higher spiritual power. So the solution to this worrying is going within to that consciousness whose very fabric is Kalyan Shraddha, a trust in the higher spiritual power, to which one can surrender one's whole being, entrust oneself, give the responsibility for one's life and future, and so abandon all worries. Of course, it is impossible for man to fall back to the level of the animal and lose the consciousness he has acquired. Therefore, for him there is only one means, one way to get out of the condition he is in, which I call a miserable one, and to emerge into a higher state where worry is replaced by a trusting surrender and the certitude of a luminous culmination. This is the way to change the consciousness. Nothing to explain, yeah? Surrender to the divine. How can a problem be solved when one doesn't know the necessary knowledge? And the unfortunate thing is that man believes that he has to resolve all the problems of his life, and he does not have the knowledge needed to do it. We resonate with it, right? We want to solve things in our life, but we don't have the knowledge to do it. That is the source, the origin of all his troubles, the perpetual question, what should I do? Anything goes wrong in the body, what should I do? Should I do Ayurveda? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Anything wrong, we are constantly thinking, what should I do? What is going to happen? And at the same time, more or less, the inability to answer. Mother hits the nail on the head. This is our state. What should I do and what is going to happen? And I don't know the answer to either. That is why all spiritual disciplines begin with the necessity of surrendering all responsibility and relying on a higher principle. Otherwise, peace is impossible. And yet, consciousness has been given to man so that he can progress, can discover what he doesn't know, develop into what he has not yet become. And so it may be said that there is a higher state than that of an immobile and static peace. It is a trust total enough for one to keep the will to progress, to preserve the effort for progress while ridding it of all anxiety, all care for results and consequences. This is one step ahead of the methods which may be called quietists, which are founded on the rejection of all activity and a plunging into an immobility and inner silence which forsake all life because it has suddenly felt that without peace one can't have any inner realization. And quite naturally one thought that one couldn't have peace so long as one was living in outer conditions, in the state of anxiety in which problems are set and cannot be solved, for one does not have the knowledge to do so. So Mother's saying, first make your mind quiet. When this question haunts you, what should I do? What will happen? First sit quietly and make your mind quiet. The next step is to face the problem, but with the calm and certitude of an absolute trust in the supreme power which knows and can make you act. And then instead of abandoning action, one can act in the higher peace that is strong and dynamic. This is what could be called a new aspect of the divine intervention in life, a new form of intervention of divine forces in existence, a new aspect of spiritual realization. So, whenever we are worried about a problem, these two haunting questions, what will happen, what should I do? First step is make your mind quiet. However, going into your heart, watching your breath, and then when you're quiet, quite naturally you'll get in touch with a faith which is part of your fabric. The surface mind, its nature is to doubt, but deep inside, in your inner being, faith becomes a knowing. It's not blind belief, it's a gyan. Therefore it is said, Shraddhavan Jnanam Labhyate. You start with faith, but it becomes a knowing. You just know you're going to be fine. You just know it's going to be handled. So you make your mind quiet till you get in touch with that faith, and then you just remain quiet and the way will find you. See, none of us know what to do. And we shouldn't feel helpless because of that. The higher intelligence, which is also us in our deeper and higher being, knows exactly where we've to go and is actually carrying us there. We have to just do the best we can and we'll be guided to it. We should give up this agitation that these two questions bring us. They bring us a lot of agitation when things go wrong. We have to drop that. We have to be quiet and have faith. Shraddha or saburi. Faith and patience. Surrender and illumined thought. This is very beautiful. Mother's words. There is in love at its origin something which is translated constantly as the intervention of grace, a force, a sweetness, something like a vibration of solace spread everywhere, but which an illumined consciousness can direct, concentrate on some point. So she's saying love is a vibration which is omnipresent, it's spread everywhere. But a very conscious being can concentrate at a certain point and focus. It's like it's something that's spread everywhere. But a very conscious being is like a converging lens, catching the sunlight and focusing it at one point where it's required. And it is there itself that I saw the true use one can make of thought. Thought serves as a kind of channel to carry this vibration from place to place wherever it is necessary. This force, this vibration of sweetness is there in a static way upon the world, pressing in order to be received, but it's an impersonal action. And thought, illumined thought, surrendered thought, thought which is no longer anything but an instrument, which tries no longer to initiate things, which is satisfied with being moved by higher consciousness. Thought serves as an intermediary to establish a contact, a relation, and to enable this impersonal force to act wherever it is necessary upon definite points. So what Mother is saying is, love and grace are spread everywhere. They are omnipresent. But if there is a consciousness which is in a state of loving surrender, see, it's not a resigned, grind teeth surrender, not like that, but a genuine love for the divine, and you're in a state of surrender. And when you are in that state, this love which is present everywhere gets a channel to flow through and correct whatever's in a state of disorder. That's what Mother is saying. So I found this very, very sweet story. I'll read it out. N came to the ashram for the first time on November 18th, 1948. That's when Mother was in her body. Sri Aurobindo also was. And stayed until the November darshan. He was a voracious reader, having read all the published works of Sri Aurobindo and studied the ancient Indian philosophers. He was getting experiences of Sri Aurobindo's yoga and of other paths too. In those days, the Mother gave darshan and blessings each day in the meditation hall. And felt, you know, the meditation hall where we go inside the samadhi, the Mother used to sit there and give darshan and blessings. And felt an intense aspiration to offer pranam to her there. But there was a notice posted saying no pranam. And quietly accepted this as Mother's will and thought, whenever Mother wants, she will permit me to offer pranam. The few days of his stay passed without the opportunity occurring. N returned for the darshan of August 1949. So 1948, he didn't get to do pranam. So he came again next year. Reaching Pondicherry a few days earlier, he's still holding his aspiration, I want to do pranam to mother. Again he faced the same notice, no pranam. Deciding to find out the reason behind it, he asked Nalini. Nalini told him that the mother was under such great pressure because she was of course working with cosmic events, and 1949, 1948 were years like that, and it was not possible to allow everyone to do pranam. And also very much wanted to tell the mother about his inner experiences and to learn about their significance. He recounted some of them to Nalini, who remarked, don't attach too much importance to them now, and was not satisfied with this answer. Nalini had also told him that if he wanted to have an interview with the mother, it would be arranged in the playground, because in the meditation room, mother wasn't giving pranam, but she used to do meditations in the playground also. N had noticed that during these playground interviews, other people would be there with the mother in her room. We've all seen that room, no? So many people would be there, and A were a shy person. N felt that although he could speak to the mother about his experiences alone, to tell her about them in front of others would be impossible for him. So even though his yearning to offer her pranam increased, he did not ask Nalini to arrange an interview for him. The days passed. On his last evening in the playground, N spoke within himself. Mother, you know my aspiration is not being fulfilled. It's been a year. I don't like to lay the blame on anybody but myself. Next time I will surely ask permission. This time accept my pranam from afar and let me go away happily and smilingly. Mother, goodbye for this year. So there was no complaint, just surrender in his heart. Addressing the mother like this in his heart, N left the playground and started walking towards the park guest house where he was staying. Just then somebody called his name saying, Mother's calling you. N asked the man, how did you know my name? Because he hasn't met the mother, he hasn't told anyone his name. He replied, I didn't know it, the mother told me. Not a little curious, N asked, what did the mother say? The man answered, she described your height, clothes, face, figure, and name in such a way that I could not but recognize you. And she added, he has just gone away, call him. And was still not satisfied. He said, why is she calling me? She said, call him for pranam, answered the messenger. N's whole being was flooded with the sweetness of her grace. He followed the man to the mother's room in the playground. She wasn't there. The man, thinking N must have had a previous appointment which he had missed, started scolding him. They are very quick to scold. So he scolded N that you've come late for your appointment, mother has gone away. But N wasn't paying any attention to his words. His whole heart was overflowing with gratitude towards the mother. Within he was saying, Mother, you have granted my aspiration without my asking. Even if I do not do pranam to you physically, you have done more than enough for me. I'm truly blessed. And again he started to leave the playground. But another man came after him saying, why are you going? The mother is calling you. N said, but she has already left. No, she is here. Come with me, the man replied. When N reached the mother's room again, Nalini was there along with Pavitra, Amrita and some others. He pointed to another room and said, Mother is waiting alone. So mother had gone to a private room. That's why the first time he came, he didn't see her. Do not hesitate. N's emotions are difficult to describe. Love and gratitude inundated him. Oh, the imminent mother, the mother who's present in everything, knowing that he was shy and retiring, had called him into her room alone. As he entered hesitatingly, the mother smiled at him as if to say, my child, don't be shy. He thought, oh mother, you knew I was shy. Even though your child was unreasonable, you have granted his prayer. He lay prostrate prostrate at her feet, weeping with joy. Gradually, he lost his outer senses and lay there for at least 20 minutes. All that time, the mother remained bending over him with both her hands on his head. When suddenly he regained his outer consciousness, he felt, oh, I have kept the mother bending. He jerked up onto his knees. Again, tears started from his eyes. Still, the mother did not remove her hands from his head. Then he smiled, then she smiled again, and all the heavens opened before N. He came out of the room in a blissful state. Throughout his stay at the ashram, he had been carrying around a list of questions to ask the mother. When he was with her at last, his questionnaire was happily and totally forgotten. So, this is how a surrendered thought paves the way for love to reach you. He didn't make any demands, any complaints. He just wanted something. He held his aspiration, but in a state of great surrender, patience, and mother who knows everything in the right season gave him what he wanted and how much. He just wanted to do pranam and go, but he got her hands on his head for 20 minutes and alone. And he didn't need to tell her any of his inner experiences which he wanted to. She already knew. So the last piece for today, mother's words. Silence, somebody asks the mother, silence is more easily established by a descent from above. From above means what, sweet mother? From the higher regions of consciousness, mother answers. You see, if you open to the higher regions of consciousness and the force descends from above, quite naturally it establishes a silence in the lower regions, for they are governed by this higher power which descends. This comes from higher regions of the mind or from beyond, even from the supermind. So when this force and consciousness come down and enter into the consciousness of a lower plane, this consciousness becomes naturally quiet, for it is as though invaded, flooded by the higher light which transforms it. So mother says above our head there is her presence, the higher consciousness. And if we just quieten our minds and open to this higher consciousness and it comes down, that's the way of establishing a permanent state of peace and quiet inside us. And that is what, when we have this peace and quiet, only then we get the right view of things. Otherwise, life is constantly distorted by how we are looking at it. But if we have silence, that silence sees things as they are, uncolored by our biases, perceptions, and whatever else. In fact, this is even the only way of establishing a constant silence in one's mind. Quite a thing mother is saying. It's the only way of establishing a constant silence in one's mind. It is to open oneself to higher regions and let this higher consciousness, force, light descend constantly into the lower mind and take possession of it. And here, when this happens, this lower mind can remain constantly quiet and silent, because it is this which acts and fills the whole being. One can act, write, speak, without the mind being active. That's how Sri Aurobindo wrote the Savitri, right? He said, my mind was completely silent and whatever words came from above, I just typed. One can act, write and speak without the mind being active, with this force which comes from above, penetrating the mind and using it. And the mind itself becomes just a passive instrument. And in fact, this is the only way of establishing silence. For once this is established, the silence is established. The mind does not stir any longer. It acts only under the impulsion of this force when it manifests in it. It is like a very quiet, very silent field, and the force, when it comes, puts the elements into movement and uses them, and it finds expression through the mind without the minds being agitated. Without the minds being agitated, it remains very quiet. So to sum up today's talk, which was about the right view of life, whenever you are unhappy, always remind yourself that somewhere you don't have the right view of life. Because when you have the right view, right meaning the true view, not right and wrong, but the true view of life, you cannot but be happy. So even if troubles come, to look at them as a problem is not looking at life as a true view. Troubles come, as we discussed earlier, as a naturally purifying system. They come to cleanse you, to make you grow. You don't have to make it into a problem. So first step is quieten your mind, because without a quiet mind, even your faith is a very flimsy faith. Because one thought you'll think, mother's there, she'll look after me. Next thought, array, but this is what I'm seeing in front of my mind. So to quieten your mind when you're troubled is always and always the first step. And each one will have their own method of quietening it. But it's vital to quieten it. And once you're quiet, you don't have to create faith. When you're silence, you'll discover faith is part of your fabric. Nobody has to give it to you. It's already there inside you if you're just quiet. And you're anchored in that faith, and you know that whatever the appearance of the moment, I'll be fine. There's that beautiful line in Savitri, no? Whatever the appearance we must bear, whatever the appearance of life. You know it? Whatever our strong ills and present fate, whatever is ill in our life, whatever is dark in our present fate, whatever the appearance we must bear, whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bail. I don't know where I'm going, I'm just drifting along. Bail is sorrow, drift is randomness. A mighty guidance leads us still through all. So the whole thing, whatever the appearance we must bear, whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bail, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. So if I don't know, it's okay. That one who's guiding me knows. I'm good in that person's knowing. And then when you're anchored in quietude and faith, automatically you'll get the right perspective, the right view. And that right view is the truth that sets you free, free of the suffering in the moment. So let's end with 3 ohms. Mm.